Get out of the way! Get out of the way!
I can't wait for artificial intelligence to get applied to these videos and those schools yelling threats are unearthed. Can you imagine all of those felonies? Nick Sorter, an independent journalist and influencer out there trying to survive, surrounded by agitators who were jumping on and vandalizing his car. He was finally able to get away. He couldn't even move the vehicle. Meanwhile, Department of Homeland Security has released this brand new video. Please watch your screen. It's leading up to the shooting and the death of Renee Good by an ICE agent. What we now know, though, is so much more with each video we see. DHS is now calling out mainstream media for failing to cover the new video. The agency argues Renee Good was stalking and impeding during an ongoing investigation, and the evidence is on the tape. Speaks for itself on this post. Vice President J.D. Vance says the agent shot Renee Good in self-defense. However, some left-leaning Minnesota leaders, well, you know, they've been rocking a narrative from the beginning, calling it murder. You know how it is, so we know how they feel.
Yeah, Renee Nicole Good, as you hear her say, she's not mad. She's sitting in her car, peacefully waving cars to get by.
Anybody can see that this victim is not a domestic terrorist. I mean, my goodness, she's like doing a 3 or a 4 or 5 point turn. This looks like somebody that's trying to get out of there. If doing a 3 point turn or a 4 point turn is a domestic terrorist, and my wife is a criminal every single day.
Okay, well, it's clear he doesn't know how to drive, because I didn't see a 4 or 5 point turn going on there, but what I did see was what you saw.
Yeah, what videos have they been watching? I mean, the most important video that has been published to date is that one on Friday by Alpha News, and it gives the perspective of the ICE officer. And that you can clearly see that Good accelerated towards the police officer. You can also hear the thump of his body when he was hit by the car. You can also see the antagonizing that took place by her partner. In the lead up to this event as well. And in my opinion, it absolves the police officer from, or the ICE agent from wrongdoing here. But for these protesters and also the Walz administration and Democrats in Minneapolis and Minnesota, this is what they're defending. Our own Bill Malhusian tweeted out a list that ICE put out of some of the individuals that they have captured in this surge in Minneapolis. And we are talking about dozens of the worst of the worst. Convicted child rapists, sodomizers. Plus 10 killers. We're talking about one individual sexual assault and sodomy of a girl under 13 years old. Another individual rape of a 12-year-old and kidnapping. Another individual homicide. Another 3 counts of homicide. So why exactly are these individuals protecting these killers, these sodomizers, and these child rapists? And why is Minnesota giving them sanctuary? It's disgusting.
I want to bring this into 18 United States Code 111 states it's a felony to forcibly assault, resist, oppose, impede, intimidate, or interfere with federal officers. And there you see it right now. Emily, I want to ask you about the law and how it applies to the wife, because she was taunting. She can be seen and heard very clearly on video. In fact, she's got to have her own, because a lot of it she's taping. So I wonder if they have that, too, from her perspective.
I'll say this, too, and this is just my personal opinion from watching those videos, but you can see the wife trying to get into the vehicle.
Yes.
And then it's her voice, there's multiple layers of voices, but her voice that says, hey, hey, because the driver is driving away and isn't letting her in. So there's like all of these different slices of the pie that are occurring simultaneously. And my point is that to me is evidence that Nicole was not, or that the subject was not fleeing, per se, because if she was, she would have waited for her wife to get in the car. There was something else going on, and this will be presented before likely a jury to determine that. I want to talk about for a second the Nick Sorter attacks, because that's an unfortunate, it's actually a horrific pattern that we've been seeing. Remember the Andy Ngo and Nick Shirley and Nick Sorter and so many journalists, they're independent journalists, and they're covering these left-wing liberal protests. But then they get violently attacked. They are threatened, they are physically impeded instead of debated, and then this this sort of crowd intimidation escalates, and Andy Ngo had to go to the hospital. There are horrific stories of physical violence that independent journalists have suffered, not to mention what happens afterward, this inverse narrative that somehow they were the provocateur. We heard Governor Walz, for example, call, and this is a separate legal issue that he was talking about, Nick Shirley, but I'm talking about these independent journalists, called him a conspiracy theorist and a white supremacist. But the victims all of a sudden become those hecklers, these provocateurs, these violent individuals. And then obviously the media, it doesn't follow their narrative, so they're muted or they're not talking about it. And then in those progressive areas, we don't see a law enforcement moving toward arresting and accountability of those people. And here's what's interesting. Nick Shirley talked about this recently on a podcast. He said, you know, I was a journalist, but now I've been forced into activism because I was attacked simply for reporting the truth. Now I actually do have to take a stand and say my opinion because it's those liberal, left-wing, violent activists. And we talk about all the time that the Dems say, oh, or the libs say, oh, they were trained activists. Well, if you were trained, you should know the law. And you should know that your motor vehicle becomes a deadly weapon. And you should know what exactly is towing the line and what exactly is putting an officer in imminent threat of bodily harm or people around you.
Maybe they do know it. They don't care.
There you go.
But I tell you, one name comes to mind, and that's Charlie Kirk. And he was not an independent journalist. You don't need a title. You don't need a title for these people to press against. You know what you have? You have a point of view. You have freedom in your voice, and you have truth in your voice, and they hate us for it. And they're willing to kill some of these people. So I'm not sure. I can't separate them out from the day that you witnessed, because you were there in Utah with Charlie Kirk. I can't separate them out because I don't believe what they say. I see what they do.
Where is the Minneapolis Police Department? You have a First Amendment right to do
on a
things.
stand-down order? I don't know. Let's call them.
And so they are making the Democrats own this issue now. They went from defunding the police to not engaging the police to not having them participate. They are trying to make sure that if you do get arrested, you don't get prosecuted. They just continue to escalate this. And what's going on in Minneapolis, these people have a right to be down in the trenches. But Nick Sorter shouldn't have to go through that. That has nothing to do with ICE. That has everything to do with law and order on the streets of Minneapolis.
You know, part of the conversation going on in both Minnesota and other places, Portland now, is that ICE is not law enforcement. The U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement is a law enforcement agency within the Department of Homeland. It has two main force arms, HSI, Homeland Security Investigations, and ERO, Enforcement and Removal Operations. They are clearly the tip of the spear in law enforcement.
Yeah, and I feel like this isn't being communicated by people that could really help in this situation, that is the fact, because a lot of the protesters, and particularly those that continue to block roads, feel like they're pushing back against someone that doesn't have the right to even talk to them. They have this attitude like they don't know what they're doing is illegal. And I think that's a concern. And that clarity, just even the clarity from Minnesota leaders, from state leaders, from local leaders, that vehicles can be dangerous. And, you know, you shouldn't be attacking vehicles, throwing things at vehicles, which we've seen with ICE agents and in that Nick Sorter video, attacking journalists. Stay away from vehicles. Don't use your vehicle as part of a protest. It is large, it is dangerous, and hopefully we don't see incidents where protesters are hit by vehicles accidentally or anything along the lines that we've seen unfold thus far. But I wish the authorities would be more clear that ICE has the legal rights to be where they're going, and that vehicles can be dangerous broadly. Like, this is a bad idea.
Well, which authorities? Because Governor Walz isn't going to make that point.
And that's what I mean.
He's running from the authorities himself. Have you seen the fraud? Have you seen that case up against him? Anyway, different topic, but man, that guy's in a lot of hot water.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.